Alright, I wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up on this Reptile Cloud 149 Cinewhoop. I've been flying it pretty hard for about a month. Been really taking a beating. I've been flying over both pavement, grass, driveways, roads, going through trees, under stuff, and it's taken quite a beating, but generally speaking it's held up pretty well. I did add these little 1/2-inch foam to the front here, kind of glued them in place. That's helped a lot when I'm hitting trees, branches and stuff. Thing really, like many Cinewhoop, goes a little crazy when it hits stuff. It jacks the gyro, and that throws the flight controller off, so you got to be on the sticks to be able to recover from those things. I have learned quite a few things flying it. I'll go over here. One is, I guess we'll just talk about the durability. You know, this is ABS plastic, kind of a hard plastic, and I've had to do quite a bit of glue jobs on these front ones here. I have ordered some other ones. You could also swap the backs and the fronts over time. These are pretty cheap, like $6 for a new duct, and they do make them now with foam around them, so you can buy those that style too and replace them in there. The only problem is when you buy the one with the foam, it's going to block your access to the USB port for getting in there to make tweaks to your flight controller. But I've used both hot glue and regular plastic glue to put these ducts together, and so far I suppose they're good. The one irritating part is the camera is kind of off, set back there quite a ways. So you do, on your FPV feed, you are going to see a little bit of the image cut off there. So I did order an extender, so I'm going to push that camera forward on the next mod to it when I have those parts come in here in a few days. So that'll give me a little bit better field of view. Camera's been working solid. Electronics have been working real solid. I'll go over one of the problems I've had with that just in a minute. The motors, which are these Speedy 1407B 4000s, they seem perfect. They're very strong. They can really do some good climb outs with it. It has no problem carrying cameras. 3 cameras that I've tried. I start off with this Polaroid Act 2 1080p camera. I made a little mount here that's a magnetic mount, so it's been kind of fun to just have that on the front here, and I can swivel it around different angles. In a crash, it'll just pop right off, so that's been kind of fun. I've made some flights with it backwards. You get some interesting footage that way. These are only 25 bucks. They're amazing. They're really durable. No problems with any of them. So that's one angle. The other thing I've been mostly flying with is I've been putting a regular GoPro case on here for this Campark V30 4K camera. It's actually got a gyro built in and electronic image stabilization. I think it's really good. It's not as good as the Hyper Smooth that you get on the Heroes GoPro cameras, but what I like about it is a lightweight camera. But it turns out that camera with this case, and I have been flying it in the case because I been crashing so much with this dang thing, that it really has saved the camera. So nice little setup. I also have a Hero 8 I've been flying with. It has the the built-in feed on it, so you can just hard mount it in there. It's much more rugged than the prior GoPros, and it's got the Hyper Smooth 2.0, so you get some really good footage there. But while I'm getting this cloud tweaked in, and I'm trying to avoid having to crash the GoPro any more than I need to. Probably the major issue I had was the original Vtx antenna. There's this little stubby thing, which is kind of good, but obviously when you have a big battery on here, you're going to block the signal at some points in your flight. So I thought I initially went with this a Pagoda, which actually did improve the signal. And but what I was finding was every time it would flip over, on landing or in a crash, that would be the first thing that would hit the ground. And what it did was this TPU mount here for the connector would push down on the posts, and that would yank down on the cable, the pigtail cable that would go over to the VTX transmitter. And I'll take the cover off here and show you what that did. Alright, so if you look down in here, the little pigtail that goes from the SMC connector up to the UFL connector, that when this first got, this TPU got pushed down, it put stress on this pigtail cable and actually yanked out the connector right off of the board. So I've had to glue that, or I had to resolder that in, and I have not been able to get the real good signal out of there since. I usually have been running at 200 milliwatt power. Yeah, it gets me the good range that I'm looking for. So I'm switching out both the cable and the VTX itself today. I'll show you that in a second. Here's my XM Plus board down here. I did it with the regular plug-in connector on it. It barely fits in the back here. It'd probably be better to do something else there. There probably is a little bit of room I could put her on top of the VTX, but I was a little bit worried about the heat dissipation on the VTX board running at 200 milliwatts. So one thing seem to be considered, if you're going to get the stock set up, you might want to glue that, put some glue over top of that little micro connector that's built on the board there, because once it pops off, it's almost impossible to solder that thing on there, because it's very tiny, the pads that they give you for getting the pigtail glue, or soldered back in on there. What I had originally was, when that TPU got pushed down, it put a kink in the pigtail connector itself as it bottomed out on the bottom of the frame, and that kink kind of disrupted the coax shield, and that was enough to kill. I only could get about 50 to 100 feet of distance, and then I'd have to shut her down. And so I did replace this cable, and that fixed it. And then that basically pretty soon after flight, the next crash popped out that connector there. And the way that happened was, on the next crash, this got flexed again rather than being pushed down. One of the things I did to fix it is I wrapped electrical tape around one of the posts. That'll keep that TPU up at the top of the post, so it won't push down like it did originally to kink the cable. But now what happens is, since it won't move at all, on the next crash, you can see how it's flexing that the cable again. It's only about a 5 centimeter cable, which is just too short. So I've ordered some that are 10 centimeters for the next build here. But that's a weak point, I think, in this design. At a minimum, I would say just try to secure this VTX. You may want to not have an antenna that sticks above the battery, so let the battery take the brunt. You maybe go back to this stubby thing. It's a little pagoda inside of there. I actually took it apart because I heard some rattling, and I took it apart, and it was just the way it was constructed inside. But I think it's still okay. I might go back to that after I get this all back together again. And then I'd say either replace this with a longer pigtail, or glue this in, glue the connector in place, and hopefully that'll take, minimize the chance of it being ripped off of there, because once it rips off, you're pretty much stuck. Otherwise, flight controller's been solid. The VTX has been solid. Camera's been solid. It's a good setup. I'm not sure, the camera's not the greatest. It's not a name brand camera, but it's adequate. I'm just going to keep plugging away with this thing. All right, that's that for this one. I'll follow up with one on the VTX change out in a bit here. Have a good day.